Hello, everyone. Let's discuss a paper in 2 hours after reading it. And what we do is finding a recently published paper in the topics of consciousness, and we read it within 2 hours and then meet here on the Zoom and discuss it. And just share our questions and opinions and kind of anything that comes up to our mind. So let us introduce ourselves first. Jutta, please.
Hi, I'm Yota Koshma. I'm doing research assistant at ATL and Monash University.
Thank you, and Ryochi.
Hi, I'm Ryochi Watanabe at Kyoto University and a PhD student.
And I am Aniko Kustor. I'm a PhD student at Monash University, and today I am going to summarize the paper. So the paper that we have read today is titled "The Ascending Arousal System Shapes Neural Dynamics to Mediate Awareness of Cognitive States." It was written by Brandon Munn, Eli Müller, Gabriel Wainstein, and James M. Shine, and it was published in Nature Communications. Yeah, all of the authors are from, I think, yeah, all of them are from the University of Sydney. So at least for me, they are pretty close. Yeah, so this paper is raising a very interesting kind of point about the brain. They start by discussing that it is actually very cool how the brain can quickly switch between different functional networks and the activity of different functional networks. And for example, when you are paying attention to a task, brain regions that are relatively different from each other, or they are segregated by cortical regions, they are able to activate together and connect and process information. And this kind of flexibility is somewhat unknown how it can emerge. So the authors suggest that potentially the ascending arousal system can have a mediating role in this. And they specifically discuss, or they specifically look at two systems: the adrenergic neuromodulation system, which is, and they mostly look at the locus coeruleus, or LC, which is known to promote arousal changes and kind of like exploratory behaviors or exploration. And they also look at the cholinergic neuromodulation system, specifically the basal nucleus of Maynard, so BNM. And this region is, as I said, it's about cholinergic modulation and associated with attention and vigilance. And they have looked at the activity in these regions during resting state activity in a 7 Tesla fMRI scanner. And they try to look at how, so because all of these regions are, both of these regions are known to have kind of phasic bursts in their activity, or and that kind of, it has been suggested that these phasic bursts really they play a crucial role in changing neural dynamics. They have tried to characterize these phasic bursts of both LC and MNM activity. And so what they have found is, so basically they have found they have made two main findings. One of them is that the global integration of different neural regions was enhanced by this by these regions' activity. And the other more interesting idea that was a bit, I was kind of unsure or didn't quite understand, but sounded quite interesting, is that they looked at the so-called energy landscape of the brain, and they didn't look at they didn't use the meaning of energy in the physical sense, but they used it as metabolic energy. And yeah, so they looked at how these two brain regions potentially can modify the energy landscape or energy characteristics of the whole brain. So what they have found is, and what they have kind of suggest, is that the noradrenaline or locus coeruleus system, it plays a facilitatory role in brain transitions. So its activity actually contributes to increased changes in different brain states. On the other hand, the acetylcholine or cholinergic activity, it actually decreases the likelihood of brain state transitions. And yeah, so basically with this, and these two regions also have, so they have their activity, have their separate effect, but they also have their effect, kind of the summation of their effect, which is actually not a linear combination, but so there's, or it is a linear combination, but it's not the actual like sum of the two regions' activity. And yeah, they basically show how these arousal systems really change or influence basically functional connectivity and general activity patterns in the brain. And they also have a smaller section about the role of the locus coeruleus in potentially contributing to changes in the content of consciousness by looking at fMRI data collected with participants who were expert meditators, and they reported changes in their conscious content. And yeah, overall, it seems that yeah, these arousal systems have a very crucial effect on brain dynamics. Yeah, this is how I would summarize it. Do you have anything to add, or yeah, anything I have missed?
For me, okay. I agree with your summary.
Thank you. Then let's go to discussion. So do you guys have any questions or any thoughts about this paper?
Yota, you are muted.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So first of all, this paper was a bit difficult for me to understand, and that because I'm not familiar with the function of the two, neuromodulator. Forgot the name. Adrenergic.
Adrenergic.
And yeah, that one, and the cholinergic one, and that, in this paper they explain that they have two different roles, and then they link that functional role with the the change of the energy landscape. So first, let me confirm what I understand is correct. So the first, the LC is to integrate the brain activity somehow. And then B and M to segregate the brain activity. And here, if we want to interpret these, integration, segregation in the energy landscape framework, the more integrate means that the more transition. So the energy landscape will be flat, because if the landscape is flat, easy to, transit from one state to another state, because you don't need to, overcome a hill from one state to the another. But in the segregation case, meaning that the neural activity will less likely to transit into another state. So in the energy landscape framework, this means that the height is of the energy landscape is really high, or from one state's local minima to another local minima, it's really difficult to overcome here the hill from one state to the other. And in their paper, in this paper, they showed that actually, based on the analysis, they found that energy landmark behave as they expected, meaning that for the LC case, the energy landscape just flatten, and then BNM case, it's emphasize the differences in a sense. Is it correct?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I can share my screen and then we can look at the figure, one of the figures of the papers. Can you see? Yeah, so I think this is what you have been talking about. This is figure 2. I guess this A section is really well kind of illustrates what you have been talking about, saying that it's like the difference between these two states in it's kind of seem to be smaller or more easily it's more easy to transition as opposed to the differences between here. So yeah, I think this is you had a very good summary of this.
Yes, but my question about that, figure is that in the top row, they show an ideal scenario where there are several, states or local minima, but in their results, there seems to be only one. So it's just like a slope from one place to another, not a, wave-like shape. So in that case, I don't know whether, their prediction really true, because the starting point of their argument is that in the integration case, the one state is more likely to be another state. But in their result, they shows that they are only the flat, meaning that for each state, the energy is kind of, or the stable. So I can kind of see that there will be, low transition in that case, but in the BMN, the green, line case, the slope is very steep, meaning that each, state is unstable. So the transition will, I think, more likely to happen in the red case. if we only have one, local minima, or in this like slope kind of shape. So I don't know whether, their prediction really, validated by this, results, or if I misunderstand the, the first starting point, maybe my interpretation is wrong, but, the first point is that whether one state can be more likely to become another state or not. So if that's the case, then I don't know whether, their results actually, as the same as their predictions. What do you think? Or is my understanding wrong? Or
to be honest, I'm not sure if I understand what you mean. I think this single slope is like, it's not the actual brain activity, but it's more like the relationship between the this kind of energy landscape and the mean square displacement, this MSD kind of function, which I couldn't quite understand, or didn't have the time to really try to figure out what exactly that means. Yeah, I don't know if I understand how would that like whether this function, the mean square displacement function, is like, why would that have like multiple waves or multiple dips? I don't understand.
okay, probably I will share my screen, but I think your kind of, comments somehow resolve my question. But anyway, so here is the, the figure 2 from the paper. And then the first thing is that I do not understand how we can, translate the top A, this figure into this B. I misunderstand this part, I think. And my point was that if we only focus on this, top row, the first starting point is that the, states here is more likely to transit to this, or less likely to transit to this. And then in LC case here, if the shape is flat, the hill is really small, so it's more likely to transit one state to the other. But in this NBM case, the hill here is really high, so meaning that the states is less likely to transit from one to another. I understand this prediction. But here, from this result, you can see the steepness of each, shape is different. And here, this green one is more steep than the red one. And here, if we, put some states here, you can see it's unstable. So it's more likely to, fall into this state based on this energy, flat landscape. But here, if we take this, for example, states here, it's already, kind of stable. So it's less likely to move into like a, let's say, left side or right side. So if this scenario, the state is less likely to transit from one to another. Right?
But why would like the flatness of that curve or that function would determine the the easiness of the state transition?
So okay, so this is my
Or not the easiness, the stability.
Okay, so this is my understanding. So might be correct and might be wrong, but here on the stableness or the transition probability is like, you know, in this case, here is the local minima. So the y-axis is energy, and the less energy means stable, and high energy is unstable. So if, let's say, a state is the top of the hill here, it's unstable. So just poking the states a little bit will, you know, fall into this, you know, states or another states. So meaning that these states can be transit to another states more easily, in a sense. That was my interpretation. So if my understanding is correct or makes sense, then the flatness means that it's already kind of a stable state. So less likely to, you know, transit into another, you know, states. Does it make sense or still unclear? Maybe my interpretation is wrong because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I still couldn't understand how we can, you know, transform the top figure to this, you know, the 2D matrix plot. And, you know, this, you know, slope kind of explanation will not vary in this domain, only in this, you know, top figure. Does it make sense or still?
Yeah, no, I definitely still understand that you have a point there, but I'm just not sure how. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I should have spent more time on reading the mathematical equations, but I mean, I couldn't have. I couldn't understand that quickly what exactly were they doing in these kind of transformations.
So I kind of understand, you know, what they try to say and why they show this is varied, because, you know, what they focus is only, you know, the difference from the baseline, and if it's more flatter than the baseline, we should observe this kind of difference, and that's also observed in the actual results or data from the analysis. And in this case, the, you know, shape is more, you know, emphasized, and that's also observed in this, you know, on their data. But again, I still struggle to understand this, you know, results. But that was my, you know, question. And stop sharing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Ryochi, do you have any inputs?
I agree on what you just said, the energy translation. But sorry, I can't understand this paper. So, so stability. So the energy translates from high energy to low energy, or the unstable. And so the high energy means instability, and low energy means low stability. So high energy, so the state translate from high energy and from high energy to low energy, and means that instability to stability, right? And in this picture, so I understand what the first picture and last one. What last one in the last figure? There is no state information.
So first, I think maybe, introducing the term stability is not appropriate, because what they want to investigate is only the shape of the curve or the surface. If it's flat, it means that the one, local minimum can be into another local minima. But if it's, very steep or very fluctuate, then one local minima cannot be into another. So here, they are nothing to do with stability, I think, because the stability is only behavior at the local minima, around the local minima, or at the, local maxima. So the comparison is the highest point and the lowest point, I think. Not about from lowest point to another lowest point, I think. But again, I don't know. So that's the reason why I said that this paper was a bit difficult to understand for me, and then still need time to interpret their results. But I think their point is that, you tend to focus on the cerebral cortex in order to, investigate the consciousness or any like a cognitive function, whatever. But this paper, or what this paper says, is that you also need to investigate the, very, I don't know how to, not the cerebral cortex, but the old region, in a sense. Yeah,
subcortical.
Subcortical.
Yeah, I see. And I have another question that, I understand this in our context, the state and state 1, state 2 is the brain activity or the neurotransmitter activity, but normally state mean what as or cognitive state, or as a phenomenal state. How to relate this state in this context or in this figure 1 or something?
Well, I think what state here means is related to the bold activity. So like we know that bold activity in specific regions definitely have some influence on the content or conscious experience, but of course we don't know the extent of it, and of course bold activity is a much slower, or it's relatively slow. So I don't know, I'm not sure whether this paper can inform us about whether like how different mind states or even I'm not sure if fMRI, the approach, can answer that.
So in this study, the participant, what participants do in this study? Like, I think this is a resting state.
Yes, resting state.
Data. Yes, but so I understand. But in this resting state, but the board signal is changeable, and the authors examine this change and the relationship between the changes or energy or something. But yeah, I understand both signal is change, but what makes this change or cognitively or right, cognitively or phenomenologically, I can't understand. I think this information is nothing, right?
So my understanding is that in the first part, where they investigated the function of subcortical brain region, they used the functional the resting state brain activity. And after confirming the function, they analyzed the data from the meditator.
Yeah, meditator.
And which require a button press task. So where the meditator needs to press a button when their focus is apart from the breathing. So at this point, they started to, connect or link the states of brain activity and the states or the cognitive states or conscious states. And what they found is that subcortical, activity also relate to the, the change of the states of consciousness. Here, the state of consciousness is not the, I think, appropriate word because it can be interpreted as a level of consciousness, but that's not something what they wanted to talk. Here, what they mean is that just the change of some conscious contents.
Yeah, I agree. But so yeah, I agree. But why the authors choose this mediator's awareness of change versus or something? So yes, yes, the change of contents of consciousness are correlated, related with these how to say neurotransmitters dynamics or arousal dynamics. I understand, but yes, the mediated awareness is one of the changes of contents of consciousness, right? So this is like the default mode network changing. But how about the external cognitive network changes or something? So this is I'm wondering. Why they choose this default mode network changes like the breathing change of the mediators? But how about the other cognitive integration or network changing? Now I have a question about this.
I'm not sure. So is your question why they used meditators instead of like other cognitive tasks? I think they just had access to this data set, to be honest. I don't necessarily think that, well, again, and also perhaps with this kind of data, you like perhaps they had easy access to it and then they could use this to connect changes in the content of consciousness or conscious awareness with their marker of this MSD calculation of the bold signal. But I think like there's nothing, I think, stopping them or anyone else to actually use this approach with, for example, in task-related or other task-related activities, because I think, yeah, definitely if this approach is a good way to characterize network dynamics in the brain, I think there are a lot of different tasks that can be applied or that can be used to kind of explore and expand our understanding of the locus coeruleus activity. Because yeah, like locus coeruleus noradrenergic activity, that's very common in almost all cognitive tasks, and attentional lapses are commonly associated with like decreased locus coeruleus activity.
I see.
Yeah, I agree with Aniko and Ruchi's, comment. But I think one possibility is that, if you only focus on the spontaneous activity, I think the trajectory is more tractable because, there will be no kind of a warp kind of situation, like from one state and then the next state is somehow like warp to the another state because it's a spontaneous. So the kind of the states that the energy landscape will like move around the previous, time point. But if we present some, external stimuli, the dynamics will completely, change. So the energy landscape will not be tractable anymore, or still possible, but it's more complicated, I think. So that's the reason why I use, this meditator data set. But that's my, interpretation.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that they did share, and I checked, and the codes are available for this, so it's definitely potentially might be a useful resource for anyone who is interested in implementing this measure and this approach, because yeah, potentially I think that's a very good point to look at other like task related activity and or other subjective reports of like changes in spontaneous thought.
So I have another question, which is about the figure 1, and they mentioned that temporal propagation is, or if you measure the temporal propagation of LC related to B and M, it propagates from frontal to the posterior. And I can't understand what does it mean. And if, they also mentioned that if you measure the propagation of B and M related to LC, it propagates from the posterior to anterior. So back to, frontal. That's, understandable. But the reversal, I just can't understand how we can, interpret that. And again, the LC is for integration between neurons, and B and M is for divisive normalization, something. That's what they explained in the introduction, and how these two different functions are related to the reversal, propagation from posterior to anterior and anterior to posterior. I just couldn't understand what that means. Did you understand that part, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that they either discuss in the supplementary materials, or because I also haven't found like how did they like how did they quantify this kind of wave propagation.
Yeah. I see. Sorry. I don't know. And also they discuss it where in this paper.
I think in the first part of the results.
Oh.
So I understand what they try to claim, but their method, their approach, analysis, a bit too difficult for me to understand. So probably I missed something very important. But like, first of all, I think the region of their interest is a bit difficult to analyze, I think. But that's the reason why, the results looks a bit complicated and a bit difficult to interpret. Because they need to, remove confound of some neurospinal fluid or something, and then also the dynamics of blood or something like that. So yeah, it's a bit complicated.
Yeah, I think especially for the first section, this time varying network analysis, they refer to a few figures in the supplementary materials about like what are the brain regions, and perhaps that's a useful kind of information that I didn't have the time to check. Yeah. Oh, Yuta, I think you're muted again.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I just wanted to say this, the time, roughly 40 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay, then, yeah. If you guys do you have any other question?
Okay, for me.
No other questions. So.
Okay. Well then, thank you. Bye.
Okay, see you next week.